Hi, my name's Penny. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about my favorite books that I read because of Booktube. So this is actually a prompt from the strikebackvideoathon, which is being run by That Bookie, Ben Sanders and G Swizzle. Basically, if you're not aware, YouTube just changed its terms and conditions so that small creators aren't going to be able to monetize their videos anymore. It doesn't really affect my channel because I'm pretty much just talking to myself at the moment, but that's okay. I still really like the idea of helping small booktubers to find each other so that we can talk more. So I thought I would make a few videos from the prompts, and I'll definitely be looking through the tags and trying to find some other people to follow. Also, shout out to That Bookie, who is the one who I found out about this through. She's probably one of my favorite small booktubers, so I'd really recommend checking out her channel if you happen to stumble across me. She's got a lot more subscribers than me. She's pretty close to meeting her threshold, so if you want to do a good deed, go and watch some of her videos. So let's talk about the books because that's why we're here on Booktube. So I think I've got about 9 books that are on my favorite shelves. So basically the top 3 levels of my shelves are my favorite shelves, books that I've read that I want to keep because they're my favorite. I'd want to read them again, or I'd want to lend them to other people. So I went through and I looked at which ones I read pretty much just because of Booktube, and there's 9 that I want to talk about. Some of them are series, but 9 things. And the first one is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, which is a 4-book series that's pretty big on Booktube, but it's also probably one of my favorite series. It is really hard to describe. I think pretty much any synopsis doesn't really give you an idea of what this book is like. At a high level, it's based around this girl Blue who lives with a family of psychics, but herself has no powers, and she runs into the Raven Boys in the first book, who are kind of on a quest to find this Welsh king who can supposedly grant wishes. Blue herself has also been told that if she ever kisses her true love, he'll die. But while all the magical world stuff is really cool, I think what this book is really strong on is their relationships and just how they grow throughout the series. And I personally find Maggie Stiefvater's writing particularly beautiful. So if you weren't sure whether to pick this series up, I would say you should. So actually the next series that I did want to mention is the Lunar Chronicles, which I don't have on my shelves, although I would like to get a copy. It's on my to buy list, but I try to spread out my spending on books so that I can spread out my enjoyment and not go too over budget in a single month. So the Lunar Chronicles are essentially a bunch of fairy tale retellings. The first book, Cinder, is Cinderella, then the second book, Scarlet, is Little Red Riding Hood, then you've got Cress, which is Rapunzel, and the last one is Winter, which is Snow White. But also each of these retellings joins together into this dystopian story about an Earth that is suffering from a plague, but also has technology like cyborgs. At the same time, there's also a whole civilization on the moon ruled by this evil queen who has the idea that she'd like to take over Earth. And throughout each of the retellings, even though I quite liked the way that they sneakily retell the story while still telling the bigger story, but slowly it builds and builds, and it's really enjoyable. I can see that I'm already taking way too long, so I'm going to hurry up. The next series I can't actually believe I haven't bought yet, which is the Diabolic series. So I read the first 2 books and the 3rd book is yet to come. The Diabolic is set in a dystopian future because I love these dystopians. In this world they've still got technology, but they've banned learning, so nobody actually knows how any of the technology works, and when things break down there's nothing much they can do about it. They've got a very brutal political system, and our main character is a genetically engineered bodyguard who technically isn't classed as human, and she has to take the place of the girl that she's trying to protect in order to protect her, and because of that gets involved in all the political conspiracies. And I really enjoyed kind of her thinking around whether she really does count as human, and also the second book has a little bit of time travel, so you should read it. The next series I wanted to mention is the Three Dec Crown series. So this is another one that's gotten talked about quite a lot on Booktube. It's basically set in this witch type world where there's witches on an island, and they're set up where there's different factions and each has a different magical power. So there's the poisoners who can consume poison without dying, there's the naturalists who can control animals, and there's the elementals who have elemental magic. And when the queen has children, she has triplets, and they are given to each of the factions and eventually have to battle for the throne by killing their sisters. I am so bad at synopsisizing. Synopsisizing is a word, I just made it up. The generation that this story is based around, things have gone a little bit differently. It's all sorts of political machinations, and it just never goes where you're expecting it to. And I think actually it's going to be a 4-book series now, so the next book is the 3rd one, and we still won't even find out what's going on. But I do really enjoy it. In the next series, I actually have the first book in the series, but I've lent it to my sister because I really want her to read the series, and that is the Wayward Children series by Sean A. Maguire. This is basically, the first book is set in a halfway home for children who have gone on a journey to a magical world, and then now that they've come back to the real world, they're finding it really hard to adjust. And then in the second book, we actually follow one of the characters from the first book and their journey to a magical world. And I really love this series. I love how diverse the characters are and how it explores different ways of thinking about life. Especially like the second book, the beginning of it was hilarious with the way it talked about the twins' parents and why they decided to have children and what a terrible idea it was. And the books are really short. So my sister's not necessarily a big reader, but I felt like I could lend it to her because I knew she'd be able to get through them super quick. Currently have the 3rd book on hold from the library, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to buy a copy as well. Because the cover is beautiful. Oh my god, so many of these I don't have and I really need to get. So the next thing is not a series or a book, it's in fact an author, which is Miss Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. So Vicious here is one of my favorite books. It's about a couple of guys who investigate extraordinaries, who are people who have extraordinary abilities, and they become enemies. And it's told kind of both in the past and the future, so you kind of, as you go along, you discover why they've become enemies and how they're related to extraordinaries. This book is amazing, partly because it's an amazing concept, but also because of amazing characters. And the other series by Victoria Schwab is the Darker Shades of Magic series, which is set in a world where there's multiple versions of London that have differing amounts of magic, and it follows characters who can move between the different Londons. And that again has a really cool magic system, really cool concepts, but also really cool characters. And I do also have, although I won't bother taking it off my shelves, the Savage Song duology, which I did also enjoy, not quite as much as Vicious and the Darker Shades of Magic, but that again has great characters and great concepts. So V.E. Schwab is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors, and I never would have even known about her if it wasn't for Booktube. The next book I think is one of the earliest books that I heard about on Booktube that I ended up reading, and that is the Mistborn Trilogy. We're holding up the whole trilogy because I bought this box set, and once, like, the pages are really thin on the books, and once you take them out of the box set, getting them back in is a massive mission. And so once you get them back in, you never take them out ever again. So I did lend them to my cousin, and they had a mission getting them out and putting them back in again. So oops, but it does keep them compact and tidy. So Mistborn is another one where the concepts are amazing. So it's set in this world where people can consume metals and from them gain magical abilities, although different people have the ability to consume different metals and hence use different powers. Although the Mistborn can burn all the metals and so they're extremely powerful, but they're also quite rare. At the same time, there's like this Lord Ruler who rules the world and is set up to be kind of an evil overlord that they are trying to overthrow. But throughout the trilogy, every trilogy has so many amazing twists and turns. And even though sometimes I think it goes on a little bit long and it could be cut down, just the payoff at the end makes it totally worth it. Alright, so we're nearly there. Second to last book is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book, I've seen mixed reviews for this, but I would never have picked it up if it wasn't for Booktube, because I normally only read fantasy, and I can't really remember what made me interested in this. I think it was people kept saying that it was best to go into it blind. You can see I've still got the price tags on it. I think maybe that's also why I own it, is because it was price declare. But I did really enjoy it. I don't know if maybe I'm dumb, but the twist at the end I totally did not see coming, even though I knew there was going to be a twist at the end. And I think some people find the main character a little bit melodramatic, but I always enjoy a little bit of melodrama, especially teenage melodrama. Kind of takes me back to my youth. Yeah, this book, I mean, as everyone said at the time, it probably is best to go into it not knowing anything. But very high level, it's about a rich girl who goes to her family's summer home and discovers that things aren't quite what they seem. That doesn't tell you anything, but you can't really tell you anything without spoilers. So the next series that I only read because of Booktube, and also the last one that I'm going to talk about today, is the Half Bad Trilogy by Sally Green. So this is another one that got a lot of mixed reviews. Some people didn't really like it. I personally really enjoyed it, especially the last book was not what I was expecting. Made me cry a lot. They're just over here, the other two. I just love the covers. I had this for so long before I realized this was a face. But basically it's based around this guy Nathan, who is half white witch, half black witch, and he's been raised by white witches, but because he's half black witch, they believe that he is evil, and he spent a lot of his life chained up and locked away, even though he's never really done anything bad. And throughout the book he kind of has to confront that side of himself and find his place in the world that is very segregated between black and white witches. And I think there probably were some bits of the story that were a bit meh, but overall I just really enjoyed Nathan's journey as a character. And even this first book had half of it in like second person, which is very uncommon for things to be written in second person. And I know a lot of people found that really awful, but I really enjoyed it. It's a different writing style, and I was a bit sad that it wasn't continued in the second two books. So if you did read the first book and you didn't like that, you might want to consider reading the next books, because they don't have that. So yeah, this video is probably way too long, but those are pretty much all my favorite books that I only found out about because of Booktube, or only read because of Booktube. I'd love to hear about what other books people have read because of Booktube, and if you're doing the Strike Back Videoathon, that's really hard to say, but if you're doing the Strike Back Videoathon, please comment down below and I'll come and have a look at your channel, because I'd love to find some other small booktubers that I can watch and support. Either way, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.